Evil spirits and demonic possessions are two things that nobody wants. While some people might be tempted to try out a Ouija board for themselves, you will have to be very careful that you do not summon any of these terrifying demons. First up, we have Incubus. This dark demon is said to take on the appearance of a male human who tries to impregnate unsuspecting women while they are asleep. Now, the goal of Incubus is to use his unsuspecting victims to birth demons and witches in order to create more servants of hell and devil worshippers. The word incubus is actually derived from the Latin language and directly translates to nightmare. So keeping that in mind, it only makes sense that this demon would appear in the shadows of the night to prey on his victims. It is not known how many dark beings Incubus could have fathered, but it is believed that the famous magician Merlin was actually created by Incubus. Many people believe that Merlin would actually spread dark magic in the towns that he traveled to while he was under the demon's control. Now, some people also believe that this demon has actually been summoned through a Ouija board on multiple occasions. There are many stories of people finding their partners alone in bed, doing some unspeakable acts by themselves. It also appears that any woman who has been a victim of Incubus has no recollection of the events that led to their eventual pregnancy. And once a Ouija board has been used to summon Incubus, it is incredibly hard to get rid of him. This is not as simple as opening a door and kicking someone out of your house when you want them to leave. Some of the oldest tricks that were used in the medieval era include covering your bed in black salt and burning special types of incense that Incubus really doesn't like. So unless you want to have a very disgusting visitor arrive in your home, the Incubus is one demon you should never activate with a Ouija board. So do you believe that Ouija boards are as dangerous as people claim? Give us your thoughts in the comments down below as we check out some more demons. Next up is Beelzebub. This demon is viewed as many different things by many different people, which brings up the possibility that it could be a real-life shapeshifter. Now, most demons have a clear goal that they want to achieve, and they have various ways of manipulating their victims in order to obtain what they want. Beelzebub loosely translates to Lord of the Flies, which has led many to believe that this demon could very well take on the appearance of a small insect. However, other stories have described Beelzebub as a large demon that actually commands a huge army of insect-like creatures. It is said that Beelzebub uses its many servants to cause destruction and wreak havoc on Earth through violent attacks. These servants are generally regarded as scum and excrement that are lurking in the deepest depths of the underworld. Some religious figures even believe that these servants are damned souls who are forced to carry out their Lord's dirty work for the rest of eternity. The Catholic Church especially fears Beelzebub, as he is even mentioned in the Bible. The scribes in Mark 3:22 have actually accused Jesus Christ himself of working directly with Beelzebub. Some believe that the Lord of the Flies was banishing evil spirits away from Earth on Jesus' orders so he could gain even more servants. Now, anything that commands an army of evil spirits and has the ability to shapeshift should not be taken lightly. Summoning Beelzebub with a Ouija board can enrage the demon and cause it to take over your day-to-day life. There have been reports of Beelzebub appearing in homes as a large dark mass that is most active at night. Other smaller paranormal events are likely the work of his minions, but this is one demon you do not want to mess around with. After that, we have Antoine Gay. This one may not sound as terrifying as a traditional demon, but it could be even more dangerous. Antoine Gay started out life as an ordinary human being, but he is infamously known as being one of the strongest cases of demonic possession to this very day. Antoine was a Frenchman who served in the military in the 1800s before becoming a carpenter in the city of Lyon. He then decided he wanted to begin the process of becoming a monk and was accepted as a lay brother at his local abbey. Now, things took a strange turn for him, however, when he shockingly decided to leave the church due to a complete nervous disorder. His sudden mood swings and his unexplained conditions quickly started to raise concerns that he had been possessed by a demon. He was examined by priests and other religious figures who reported that Gay spoke in a much deeper tone and began to share dark secrets of his life. He also started speaking in perfect Latin without ever studying the language or having any knowledge of it. Now, religious figures named the demon that had possessed Antoine Isacaro, but not much was known about the demon or its intentions beyond its name. Antoine Gay eventually passed away in the late 1800s due to various complications that priests believe were linked to the demon who had possessed him. But nowadays, there are people who are convinced that Antoine Gay is still inhabiting our world as an evil entity. There are rumors that Isacaro had passed its energy onto Antoine when he passed away, and he is now tormenting other souls all around the world. However, because of the mystery surrounding the original demon, no one is really sure how to stop it. Ouija boards are likely the easiest way to summon it, but there is no reason why anyone should even attempt to do that. Next on our list is Baphomet. This demon is another direct servant of Satan who was mentioned in texts as far back as the 11th century. He is described as a large winged beast with a goat head and a human-like body. Many paintings also show the words dissolve and coagulate tattooed on the demon's arms. Now this seems a little strange at first until you realize the main purpose of this demonic figure. Many believe that Satan had originally summoned Baphomet to destroy religion from the inside out. He would manipulate humans on Earth to carry out some evil deeds and spread the word that religion was very bad for the soul. Of course, Baphomet needed a large following of loyal servants who would help him in his quest, and he didn't have a tough time finding them. The infamous Knights Templar that existed between the 12th and 14th centuries were apparently the main followers and direct servants of Baphomet. They would supposedly carry out all sorts of anti-Catholic rituals and actions, which included spitting on the cross. While the Knights were technically a military order that was supposedly fighting alongside the Catholic Church, some believe that they were actually fighting against it. Many people started to question the Templars' faith in the early 1300s, and some were convinced that they were worshipping demons. Then in 1307, it was King Philip IV who ordered the majority of the Knights to be arrested for worshipping Baphomet. This led to the of many members and the complete dissolution of the order. But if you thought that spelled the end of Baphomet altogether, then you would be very, very wrong. There are many anti-religious groups that still exist today, and many believe that they are actively summoning Baphomet to carry out their orders. While many evil spirits are keen on working with this terrifying demon, others are still actively fighting to banish him forever. And finally we have Lucifer. Now this evil figure is actually a fallen angel who is now believed to be the demon of pride. Now because pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, Lucifer's actions have resulted in him being labeled a demon by many in the Catholic Church. It is said that Lucifer was actually one of God's greatest creations, and many regarded him as a true son of God. While Lucifer was gifted a throne by God himself and was placed in the Garden of Eden to enlighten humans, his own self-pride eventually got the better of him. After witnessing the creation of Adam and Eve, Lucifer was ordered to bow to the original pair of humans. But in a defiant move of power, Lucifer declared that his creation was far superior and he refused to bow to Adam and Eve. Now some believe that Lucifer was incredibly brave to rebel against his creator, but God was not interested in hearing his argument. Lucifer was banished from heaven for his actions and is regarded as the first sinner for putting his own self-pride before God. His appearance as an angel quickly transformed into a demon who convinces people to develop egos. It is believed by many in the Catholic Church and others that egotistical people are the works of Lucifer himself, as he leads them to their inevitable downfall. While many demons could be considered more dangerous due to their violent natures, Lucifer could actually be the most cunning of them all. His slow and steady manipulation of a person's ego can lead to some terrible choices in life that can have irreversible consequences. The estimated number of victims who have been manipulated by Lucifer throughout history is well into the millions. Summoning this entity through a Ouija board might not have an immediate impact on a person's life, but it will slowly crush them over time. There are definitely ways to fix a person who is possessed by Lucifer, but you'd be better off just keeping him far away from any Ouija boards.
Coming in at number 5, the Undead Witch. Generally speaking, you should avoid undead witches. The living ones can be reasoned with and are often quite pleasant to converse with, even if you yourself are not a follower of Wicca. The ones who perished and through some dark magic managed to make it back to the realm of the living, those are the ones you gotta watch out for. Nobody wants to be at the receiving end of a hex or spell cast by a practitioner of magic who has returned from the grave. No thank you. An unfortunate cohort of Ouija-using pals accidentally summoned one though, and the results were less than pretty. After procuring a Ouija board through some pretty standard methods, a guy named Justin and his pals decided to have a little seance, all in good fun of course. Fun is just how those things start though, and it quickly took a turn for the worse. The friends opened up the session and began to ask questions of the presence they had summoned. At first there was no response, but the intrepid paranormal enthusiasts pressed on dauntless, looking for some sort of message from the other side. Then the planchette started moving. Slowly at first, it swayed back and forth between the four corners of the board, picking up speed as it went. Soon it was just doing quick laps around the board. The circle shifted and undulated as the planchette began drawing out new shapes on the surface, freaking everyone out. They called it off, closed the circle, and decided to do something else. However, when Justin tried the board again, this time with a different friend, the results were the same, a slowly shifting planchette eventually reaching a fever pitch. After that second experience, he started to notice strange things happening. He would wake up in the middle of the night with the sensation of someone grabbing his arm. His pals that participated in the paranormal practice reported similar events. Looking into it, they discovered that this experience could have endowed them with a hex. From beyond the grave, this witch decided to weave some spells and made some mischief. Hopefully the folks on the receiving end are okay now. Coming in at number 4, close the circle. Now, this is just good advice for anyone interested in Ouija. Make sure that you fully understand the ritual before going in and performing it. Walking in half prepared will always end in disaster, so do not wing it. Read up on the process, ensure you understand what must be done, and for goodness sakes, make sure to close the ritual at the end. You can do everything else right, from starting with a good mindset, to being polite and patient with your summoned spirit, to refraining from asking for physical signs that they are present. But if you don't move the planchette to goodbye at the end of the session, whatever presence you've brought into your home is liable to stick around and experience most foul. Some will be friendly, amicable spirits from the great beyond, willing to interact and leave without any trouble. But you can't believe everything a spirit tells you on a Ouija board, and many times demons will appear under the guise of a good-natured individual. This is where things can get dangerous. Take poor Vince, who once used a Ouija board as a child. He and his brothers managed to summon a Russian spirit who claimed to have been murdered in cold blood. A classic origin story for sure. But after they stopped communicating, the brothers decided to go get some food, without closing the circle. When they returned to the basement, the energy had noticeably shifted. A dark, heavy presence was here, and things were not as they were. Books and toys had been flung around the room in a whirlwind, but the Ouija board still sat in the middle, undisturbed. Apparently, when Vince looked into the mirror in the basement, he noticed that the eye on the Ouija board was looking around the room as if searching for something. The brothers moved the planchette to goodbye and resolved never to do that again. Coming in at number 3, we've got a scorched corpse. Could be Freddy Krueger, could be someone else. I'd rather not take that risk though. It seems that whenever kids spend the night somewhere unfamiliar, they witness unexplainable phenomena. The result of overactive imaginations perhaps? Or is there something to these visions of the paranormal? Well, you could ask those who decided that a sleepover in an old school gym was a good idea what they saw. Christy and her soccer team had set up for an overnight stay at the school gym. Sleeping bags, snacks, scary stories, you name it. But someone brought a Ouija board, and that could not be resisted. The teammates gathered together and started the ritual, seeing if anyone from the school's history would show up. When they finally made contact with somebody, it spelled out words like thirst, and fire, and help. Then the spirit moved the planchette to goodbye, and that was that. They asked around the next day and discovered something disturbing. Apparently there had been a fire at this very location a long time ago, burning the building to the ground. Could it be that a poor, unfortunate soul was trapped in this inferno and now haunts the rebuilt gym? Coming in at number 2, we've got some solo advice. I'll do one more advice column contribution to this Ouija video just to make sure any curious individuals go in knowing as much as they possibly can. Never use a board on your lonesome. Not only is that a goofy, dorky thing to do, it can also be very dangerous. It takes 2 to tango, and it also takes a duo to draw upon the spirit world. Don't underestimate the power of the paranormal. In many dramatic interpretations of Ouija use, folks who go about it alone end up way worse for wear. Often they'll end up summoning something that will attempt to possess them, emboldened because they're alone. Or sometimes they'll simply be unable to control any aspect of the ritual and see some things that are quite upsetting. One story comes from an individual named Sarah who decided she wanted to contact some spirits in her free time. Unable, or maybe unwilling to gather some friends in time, she sat down with the board and planchette all alone. This proved to be a very bad call almost immediately as the planchette shot out of her hands and across the room. Needless to say, she did not attempt this again. Another tale comes from Oceana, who similarly wanted to see what spirits were around but refused to gather a group. When she started the ritual, nothing seemed to happen. A little perplexed, she began to clean up, but as she was moving candles, she noticed something quite spooky indeed. The planchette was moving totally on its own with Oceana nowhere near the board. She rushed over and moved it to goodbye and hasn't attempted a seance since. And finally at number 1, we've got summoning sleep paralysis. Most folks looking to dabble in Ouija will find a board and use it somewhere they feel safe, at home or maybe a friend's place. But if you're serious about finding some paranormal activity, notably haunted areas are the place to be. In visiting these locations, you're essentially accepting responsibility for whatever spirits or demons you encounter though. Take Aaron and Arjun, 2 friends who found a Ouija board and decided to take it to a graveyard. Definitely a place known for harboring spirits and the like. At the graveyard, the duo attempted to summon something and failed, or so they thought. After their uneventful seance, they returned home and went to bed. Late that night, Aaron experienced sleep paralysis for the very first time. Unable to move, he saw a ghostly woman with long black hair slowly floating towards him. Some might chalk that up to a coincidence, or maybe the fact that Aaron was a little spooked from his late night excursion. However, Arjun called up Aaron the next day and told him about an identical experience. The 2 friends had somehow summoned a spirit that followed them both home and began invading their sleep. Goodness gracious.
Number 5. Patty Donovan. This is a tale from the investigative files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, my favorite paranormal investigators. 15-year-old Patty Donovan came across the Ouija board and decided to use it to find a friend. From the first yes in response to her queries, she was hooked. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it specifics about her everyday life. After a year of telling all of her secrets to the board, Patty had become emotionally dependent on the spirit, asking it one night to reveal her future. During the very long session, it laid out a scenario of Patty's life for the next 6 years, providing specific details, right down to the date of birth of her first offspring, and the fact that she would have a total of 3 spawn by 1978, which is all information that would eventually prove correct. Being as dependent as she was, on the evening of March 2nd, Patty now pleaded for the spirit to manifest. The next morning, Theodore Donovan found the spark plug wires pulled out, the rubber hoses unfastened, and the fan belt cut when he attempted to start his car. And not much later, Patty attempted to start her car, and it was discovered later that the internal engine had been completely disassembled. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Foundation shrubs were yanked out of the ground, roots and all. On the roof, a 6-foot cast iron pipe housing electrical wires was found bent at a 90-degree angle. On Friday, March 8th, Ted marked 1 flat on the kitchen calendar. And no sooner did Patty get her car back from the shop than one of her other tires lost air. The next day, being Saturday, her father made the same entry on the calendar, although this time it seemed the tire had been cut with a sharp implement. In the meantime, Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the Ouija board. Night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would simply slide over to goodbye. She had no idea her ethereal beau had actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. Like, come on, Buddy goes completely silent and your house starts being targeted by hell demons and you don't pick up on it? By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so troublesome that Ted complained to the police, who assured him that they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work, Ted and his wife, Ellen, were sitting in the kitchen with their son Brian when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. Cautiously moving to investigate, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall in Brian's room. Just as upsetting was the fact that the jagged edges of the plasterboard were pointing inwards, with the blow coming from inside the walls. Yeah, the evidence is already a mountain for me, but we still have plenty more to pick through. Listening in the dark that night, Ted heard the sound of a board being pried loose, but after checking the entire house thoroughly, found no loose boards. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to the Warrens. Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Finally contacting Ed and Lorraine, they arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, finding the home in complete disarray. Lorraine said nothing, although at the time she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from going back outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was revealed. To that I say, about dang time. The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism, which that process sadly took a month to be granted. The family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time, but that alone could fill out a top 5 of its own, so let me know in the comments if you want that eventually. Number 4, the first victim. The board's dark history begins with the strange death of the owner of the original trademark, American entrepreneur William Fuld, in 1927. After acquiring the business from its former owner, a medium named Helen Peters, who sold it because of the serious damage it caused to her family, William built the company into a profitable business. Shortly thereafter, he began to experience his own family troubles that resulted in him cutting his brother out of the company in 1919, and just like my mother and I, they never spoke again. 8 years later, on February 24th, William was on the roof supervising the erection of a flagpole when a support suddenly snapped and he toppled off the building. He tried to break the fall by grabbing onto a windowsill, but the window closed and he fell to the ground, breaking several ribs. He should have survived, but the vehicle hit a bump on the way to hospital that sent a splint of cracked rib bone into his heart instantly. Well then, what a coincidence. After his death, William's descendants took over the company. Catherine and William A. Fuld ran the company until the youngest brother, Hubert, became president in 1942. The Parker brothers acquired the company and all of its assets in 1966, and finally Hasbro took over Parker Brothers, and with it, the Ouija board in 1991. I have no issue with cursing out Hasbro. While they may be great at making board games that aren't cursed, and I'm sure they're profiting on the Yikes fandom that are the adult fans of My Little Pony, they really bungled the years that they held the Disney Princess doll rights, and that's something I'll never forgive them for. Number 3, 3, a long-term buddy. I'm using buddy pretty loosely here. This tale comes from Reddit user Madame Mim20, which I'm hoping is a reference to the Sword in the Stone. During her junior year of high school, she went to a party where the host brought out a Ouija board, and she admitted that she was into paranormal stuff, but didn't know the dangers of, one of those boards. Typical questions were asked, but her vision began to darken, even though the lights were on. The last question being the classic: how old will I be when I die? Everyone got traditional numbers except for Mim. The planchette moved to 0, and then 1, then 0, then 1, continuously moving between those two numbers until someone just shook the board and said it was being stupid. At that point, she stopped playing since it weirded her out, and I'm sensing 2 red flags so far, but I'll excuse one of them since she didn't know the horrors at the time. Mim claims to have a decent ability to sense the unknown and normally see, beings or ghosts. This one showed up during one of her classes not even a few weeks later. If anyone's getting deja vu, this is reminding me of Patty Donovan as well, don't worry. At first, the ghost appeared like a comforting protector, until he wasn't. Weird things in Mim's home would happen, ranging from drawers opening, whispers, shadows, lights in places where they shouldn't be, and books moving on their own. And at night, it would be much, much worse. He would just stand in front of her door and the fear would ooze out of him as his form would change. Mim had no doubt that he was downright evil, to which I say, no S-H-I-T Sherlock. She dealt with all of this single-handedly until she moved in with her husband, so I'll give credit where credit is due for enduring that. Things escalated in the now duo's first home together, a small 400 square foot rental. Footsteps, breathing, and unknown whispers became the norm. At the time, her soon-to-be husband was a practicing Wiccan and had blessed most of the home, but forgot about the porch and outer walls, where they would hear scratches on the walls and knocking on the door and windows. Folks had seen her demonic attachment as a shadow and described him as tall and built like a brick house. Also that he felt just outright bad and would always go back into the room Mim was in. Her husband had tried to banish him out, and it didn't go well. For context, her husband worked the closing shift at his place of employment and would get home at around 3:30 a.m., which happens to be right in the middle of prime haunting hours. There was a road he would have to take that was very haunted as well, with a history of lots of accidents and right next to a good-sized river. One night he got home looking extremely pale and sweating. Turned out that while driving on that specific road that night, his brakes failed and he couldn't stop. He was going about 100 kilometers an hour, and the wheel began to jerk out of his hands towards the river. He had to use all his strength to keep that car on the road because the wheel was just yanking so hard. To the shock and surprise of no one, the brakes were fine the next day, and ditto for the wheel. This was the final straw, and the duo had a priest bless the entire house and were eventually able to move out of the state and leave whatever it was behind. Number 2, teenage hijinks. This tale comes from a gal named Jenny and also dates back to, high school hijinks. She was at her friend's house for a fun summer weekend, and on the Sunday night, they decided to make themselves a Ouija board, taking all the precautions, using a piece of flat plywood, which was laminated with plastic on one side, and using an old glass which could later be discarded. This was the first experience for both of the teens, and they assured each other that they were going to do it properly. No being stupid and pushing the glass around to fool the other. They started off by saying a prayer before asking if there were any spirits present, trying to be specific about only wanting contact with peaceful and good energies and spirits. Here's the thing. You can't guarantee who is going to answer a Ouija board, and evil spirits are gonna lie if they need to deceive you. So while I commend the intent, I'm already sensing a yikes situation. The glass was moving very slowly at first, and they were unsure if it was working or not. The duo asked if there was somebody who wished to talk to them, and the glass moved slowly over to the yes marker. They asked the spirit, if it was male or female, and it indicated that it was female. When asked to spell out its name, the glass first traveled to K, and then to a Y, and then to M, before ending on the center, ergo spelling out Kim. Jenny's friend went white, and it was obvious that he was freaked out. They then asked how she died, and the spirit spelled out car, which further scared Jenny's friend. Next, they asked what kind of car it was that Kim had died in, and it proceeded to spell out Reliant Robin. It was at this point that her friend told Jenny that his auntie was dead, her name was Kim, that she died in a car accident, and she was driving a Reliant Robin. Next, they asked if the spirit had anything to tell them, but it indicated no and then said goodbye. As much as I hate to crush spirits, pun not intended, I doubt that was actually his aunt. Probably just a demonic spirit playing an awful joke, which is something I wouldn't wish on anybody. So next they asked if there was any more spirits that wished to communicate with them. It suddenly got very cold in the room, and the hair was standing up on both teens' necks and legs. This spirit was more powerful, and the glass moved a lot faster. They asked if it was male or female, and it indicated that it was a male. Once again, following a formula, they asked for the spirit's name, and he said he was called Liam. Next, the duo asked for the spirit's age when he passed over, and he went to the 7 and then to the 0, indicating 70. Finally, they once again asked whether he had anything to tell them, and it proceeded to spell out Ollie, which happened to be Jenny's friend's younger brother's name. Her friend then explained that his younger brother Ollie had seen the spirit of an old man standing in the garden some years earlier. They ended their session with another prayer, and while I commend their attempts at making things safe, I hope the spirits that know way too much about them are leaving them alone. Number 1, predicting a death. Heads up, this might be a little triggering for folks, so I promise I won't mind if you hop off now. Heck, the first time I read the story, I got tears in my eyes because it hit close to home for me. Allison was a teen at the time and was at a friend's house for a sleepover when she and her friends decided to play with a Ouija board in the garage. Her friend's mother was at work and her father was in bed, so they had no supervision and decided some debauchery was in order. While playing with the board, they asked if anyone wanted to speak to them and got a yes, so they asked for a name. They got Mom. And when they asked for a message, it said under bridge. No one understood the message at the time. Later, after they had gone to bed, there was a knock at the front door. It was the local sheriff who had come to the house to tell the girl's father that his wife had been in a car accident on her way home from work that night, and her car was found submerged in water under a bridge just a few miles from their home. While I don't believe it was actually the mom communicating over the board, I'm just hoping it wasn't a demon who actually caused harm. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say on this tale, other than I feel like I've had the wind knocked out of me.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Evoker. I'm gonna kick off the list with my personal favorite, even if it doesn't really fit the theme that I'm going for here. It's definitely a ritual and it definitely summons demons, but it's also for a different purpose than most, as one might say awakening a persona isn't the same thing as using a ritual to bring a demon into this world. Potato, potato. Anyone familiar with Atlas games should be familiar with all the different ways of summoning demons. You can use an app, head through the TV, or fire up any number of electrical gadgets to access the demons that'll help you fight. However, one stands out above the rest. Persona 3 is well known for its striking visual style, kick-ass soundtrack, and of course, the method by which you summon demons. If you want to summon your persona, you've got to find a gun-shaped evoker, put it to your head, and pull the trigger. That's right, we're summoning demons by shooting ourselves in the head. By the way, I don't recommend using this method in real life. But in the world of Persona 3, doing so will allow you to accept your own mortality, induce terror, and summon your persona. I'd say in terms of rituals to summon demons, this is an extremely simple yet hardcore way to go about it. No summoning signs, no special materials, just a gun, your head, and your emotions. Boom. If only summoning demons was always that simple. Many folks are only able to summon one particular persona, but the protagonist in Persona 3 can use all sorts of demons to their advantage. So in this case, using an evoker can have all sorts of different demonic results. Not bad. Coming in at number 4, we've got finding a meat suit for Samhain. Plenty of demons get summoned through the many seasons of Supernatural. Some need folks to draw symbols, light candles, and recite incantations. Others require that a bowl of assorted ingredients and blood be lit on fire. Then there's the ritual to summon Samhain. This one gets really specific. First, it should be known that this demon can only be summoned once every 600 years, so be sure you've got the right calendar before starting. Most times you bring them about, you'll need a few super strong magic users. Also, it's important that whoever's going forward with this summoning ritual hides themselves from angels. Samhain is powerful enough that the celestial beings of light need to be watching at all times. Then you've got to sacrifice 3 people over the course of 3 days. Of course, the final blood sacrifice has to happen on Halloween. When else would you complete a crazy summoning ritual? Thanksgiving? Grow up. During this time, some more classic ritual stuff needs to happen. Blood is to be collected in a chalice. An old Celtic incantation is chanted. There are black candles, goat skulls, pentagrams, and special minerals. And this isn't some little piddly summon, it's a crazy one. If you get all the steps right, then the earth will crack and Samhain can arrive, taking full possession of his meat suit. Isn't that a fun phrase, a meat suit? And right back to the Halloween requirement, Samhain is the origin of Halloween. We wouldn't be celebrating the holiday without him. Of course, bringing him to life means that we'll be dealing with a few more ghosts, ghouls, and zombies than usual, but I suppose that is to be expected around Halloween. Coming in at number 3, we've got entering a basement. This just seems to happen in a lot of horror movies, huh? Some folks head on down into a creepy cellar through a hidden door, and there's an artifact waiting there for them. It might be a book, or it could be an enchanted orb. Touch it, read it, or break it, the results are all the same. Demons. Or ghosts, ghouls, and goblins, but that's kind of beside the point. It happened in The Evil Dead when the Naturam de Monto is found and a recording of incantations is played. It happened in Wishmaster when the fire opal is polished. And it happened and has happened every year for ages in the Cabin in the Woods thanks to that lovely cellar full of cursed antiquities. The best thing about these demon summoning rituals is that they're so simple, any idiot can do them. In fact, that's probably the expectation in the first place. Why bother with the planning and the learning to draw sigils and the spilling of blood when you can just crack open a book and watch the sparks fly? Plus, with this knowledge, entering any spooky basement immediately becomes step 1 in your demon summoning ritual. There's always the chance you're going to stumble across some artifact that will irrevocably alter the course of your destiny. Isn't that an exciting thought? What kind of demon would you summon from the basement? I like the idea of winding up a cursed music box and dealing with the consequences. Coming in at number 2, you can torture a family. Unlike entering a basement, torturing a family to summon a demon takes a little more finesse. You've got to know and understand the demon you're going for and ensure that the victims really don't know what's going on until the last possible moment. Take the cult and Hereditary. They had this all planned out from the start. Like, it literally took them years to put this summoning ritual together. In the end, we get a lovely saxophone wail by the one and only Colin Stetson, and Paimon finds his way into a proper male host. But how did they make it happen? We follow the Graham family for most of the flick, meaning that we're not exactly privy to the details of the ritual. Thankfully, Madeline Aguilar interviewed some witches for the cut to find out a little more. Turns out that Paimon is listed in a Solomonic grimoire, which sort of outlines what he does and how to summon him. A summoner would need to draw a magical circle around themselves and a triangle just outside of it. They've got to be wearing the correct seal and be ready to offer the demon all sorts of stuff upon arrival. Plus, there might even be some additional demon managing involved. If you remove Paimon, who was once considered a king of hell, who was going to cover for him? It's just like real life work, but more supernatural. As is the case in most situations, the movie summoning was a little different from real life summoning, but still, going behind a family's back to switch the souls of their two children by decapitating one and possessing the other is a pretty crazy ritual. Then there's the whole nude old people lurking in an empty house bit. That's a little less fun in my opinion, but maybe I'll understand when I get older. Finally, at number 1, we've got revenge. I haven't done any extensive canvassing to find out if this is true or not, but I feel as though revenge is a primary driving force behind plenty of demonic summons. Don't quote me on that, but consider the implications. People want a lot of things: a large automobile, a beautiful house, a beautiful wife, but not everyone's willing to put it all on the line to acquire those things. However, once someone is possessed by a need for revenge, there isn't much that will prevent them from getting it. So if they have to summon a demon and give up their future, so be it. Revenge will be served. A prime example of a revenge-fueled ritual has to be that in the movie Pumpkinhead. Poor old Ed Harley loses his son to some rowdy dirt bikers and swears he'll get them for this. There are no rituals for bringing his son back, but there are rituals for getting revenge. He learns this from the old witch Haggis, who tells him that vengeance comes at a terrible price. Ed is fine with this and uses his son's blood mixed with his own to turn a corpse into the demon known as Pumpkinhead. Thus begins a horrifying rampage fueled by blood, one that can only be stopped by completing the ritual. And the only way to do that is for the man who summoned the demon to die. Ed Harley, who summoned a demon for revenge, realizes that it wasn't the right call. He ends up taking the place of Pumpkinhead in the grave. But revenge will bring this creature back again. There's a sequel after all.
In 5th place, we have the origins of the board. No better place to start than from the beginning, which is a very good place to start. The board's dark history begins with the strange death of the owner of the original trademark, American entrepreneur William Fuld, in 1927. After acquiring the business from its former owner, a medium named Helen Peters, who sold it because of the serious damage it caused her family, William built the company into a profitable business. Shortly thereafter, he began to experience his own family troubles that resulted in him cutting his brother out of the company in 1919, and just like my mother and I, they never spoke again. 8 years later, on February 24th, William was on the roof supervising the erection of a flagpole when a support suddenly snapped and he toppled off the building. He tried to break the fall by grabbing onto a windowsill, but the window closed and he fell to the ground, breaking several ribs. As somebody with a rib injury, ouch. He should have survived, but the vehicle that was taking him to the hospital sent a splint of a cracked rib bone into his heart, killing him instantly. Well then, what a coinky-dink. After his death, William's children took over the company. Catherine and William A. Fuld ran the company until the youngest brother, Hubert, became president of William Fuld Incorporated in 1942. Now Parker Brothers acquired the company and all of its assets in 1966, and finally Hasbro took over Parker Brothers and with it the Ouija board in 1991. Turns out in 2008, during an attempt to market pink board games to girls, Hasbro released a very pink and girly limited edition version of the board. It's a good thing I never came across it as a kid, because I probably would have been so tempted to play with the board. Heck, I almost found myself tempted to check eBay for a listing today, but I don't trust myself enough to not spend too much money on it purely for the aesthetic. Okay, I lied, I did check eBay, but it would be like $200, and that is not in my budget. In 4th place, we have the board that wouldn't burn. Writer Brandy Flack has discussed openly how she and her friends played with the Hasbro branded Ouija board as teens purely out of young mind curiosity and rebellion. At the time, her uncle told tales about when weird stuff began to happen at his home, he and his wife decided to throw their Ouija board into a dumpster at a local gas station, but it magically reappeared at the house. For reference, the weird stuff included lights flashing all around Brandy's aunt's bedroom downstairs and her uncle's bedroom upstairs at the same time that woke them from sleep, but when her uncle looked out the window, there was no one outside, and an instance of a white rat appearing and disappearing happened from the aunt's bedroom. Brandy is positive that the home was haunted, and remembered that the pet cats that roamed the house weren't too fond of the environment, especially the aunt's room. Animals are usually much more sensitive than humans to spirits, just saying. Now, when it came time for Brandy to play with the board herself, she dabbled quite often with danger. Sometimes nothing would happen, other times she and her friends would receive messages from what they thought were spirits. One particular evening, she and a friend were playing, and the indicator started moving quickly in an erratic circle. Now, whoever, or whatever they were talking to, was perturbed, and upon asking what the message was that it wanted to get across, the board spelled out 911. Now, the attacks of September 11th, 2001 hadn't happened yet, but she and her friends knew that, you only call that number if something bad happened. So they panicked, immediately taking their hands off the indicator, making direct eye contact, grabbing the Ouija board in sync, running through the house, and throwing the thing in the backyard. While they panted after that run, they discussed how to dispose of the board and decided on burning it with what they had lying around, thankfully having a bunch of kerosene kicking around. They poured the flammable fluid on the board, lit a match, dropped it, and ran. And what do you know? The damn thing refused to burn. I'm not surprised. Brandy and her friend tried with multiple matches, and zilch. She played with it many times afterwards, experiencing instances of her boombox turning on by itself, stuff falling off shelves, and erratic, unintelligible messages. I'm no arsonist, but I've been known to play around with lighter fluid, and that stupid board should have gone up in flames easily. In third place, we have a cursed previous tenant. Now, Mark has very adamantly emphasized that he has not embellished his tale at all, and this is just what happened after moving into a Ouija board cursed home in Australia that he lived in with his family between 1982 to 85. Now, Mark's mom, who was a stay-at-home mom, said the first thing she noticed after a month or two of living in this house was that the family dog would refuse to enter the home and spend all of her time in the backyard in her kennel. Now, apparently if the mom was bringing in the laundry, the dog would happily follow up until the back door, but as soon as the mom reached the back door, the dog's tail would drop and she would start whimpering. Now, Mark's mom chalked it up to weird behavior for moving, nothing more, until weird things began to happen. The laundry room would flood for no reason, with adjacent rooms left completely dry, and Mark's parents would walk down the back of the house to find light bulbs that had shattered in their sockets. His mom in particular said she absolutely detested walking in the back of the house at night, citing that as soon as she entered the stairway landing area that was at the back of the house, her hairs would stand on end and she would feel a sensation like someone watching her every move. Nope, that's when I would have left. The weirdness continued, ramping up over a few months in the evenings when the parents would hear shuffling feet coming from the rumpus room, which was located directly below their bedroom. Now, often Mark's mom said she'd be, knitting or watching TV at the front of the house by herself late at night, only to hear laughter coming from the back of the house. And she would always check, never finding any source of the noise. Oh, I'm not done yet. Yeah, we're only partway through this tale. One weekend, when a cousin and an aunt came to stay at the home, the mom had to rush out for an errand and warned the aunt before leaving the house about, the weird noises just to be safe and polite. The aunt dismissed the claims, but of course, Mark's mom returned home later to find the uncle consoling the aunt in the driveway of the house. Now, remember, he wasn't originally supposed to be there that weekend. While Mark's mom was gone, the aunt felt thumping from the floorboards, laughing from the back of the house, and a disembodied spirit calling her name. Mark's mom was fed up at this point and started asking around the neighbors for any kind of clarity about the house. And this is where she learned that the previous renter went a bit crazy after a messy divorce and joined a religious group where she hosted seances in the rumpus room, where, the majority of the disturbances had been coming from. It goes without saying that Mark's mom wanted to, try and move out that same day, but her husband disagreed, so they stayed put for a while yet. A few months later, Mark began complaining to his mom about a man who sat on top of his wardrobe, looking at him at night, so she pitched the entire thing out of frustration. A few weeks after that, Mark's mom was getting changed in her room at the top of the house one day, and when she went to get out of her room, she found the door was locked. She started shaking the door, but it wouldn't open, calling out for help, but no one was home. The poor woman was 7 months pregnant, but she made the decision to shimmy down the drain pipe to the ground, re-entered the house through the side door, up the stairs, to find her door wide open and unlocked. Now, she was ticked with the house at this point, and made the decision to consult a local pastor to ask what to do. After listening to everything the family was going through, the pastor presented her with two options. She could ignore everything and pray it stopped, or read enough Bible verses out loud in hopes that they could anger the spirit into, moving out. He warned her, though, that if they went with the second option, it might throw stuff around. He was quoted as saying, "Take it or leave it, and you might think I'm mad, but you have 2 to 3 demonic entities residing in the back of your house." This was the end of it for Mark's mom, who was already debating divorce from her husband and began packing up everything to move herself and her family out of there. The day before the family was about to finally leave, the mom was checking in on the youngest ward while she was sleeping in the nursery at the top of the house, and discovered that the bed that was supposed to have that ward was empty. The window above the bed was wide open, and the fly screen behind it had its rubber seal hanging in the breeze, with the flap of the fly screen swinging in the breeze. Now underneath that window was an annex over the back door, which now had a huge dent in the fiberglass of it, and its supports were completely broken off. The tiny human was crawling around the backyard with the dog playing beside her. Completely panicked, the mom called the doctor, who confirmed the tiny human had a mild concussion. Nothing more. Evidently, she had somehow fallen out of the window and survived, and pretty much unharmed. The family moved out that day and never looked back. Yeah, that's a haunted house I don't need to visit. In second place, we have William Peter Blatty, author of The Exorcist. Yep, the book that inspired the famous flick of the same name. In a 1972 interview with British journalist Ray Connolly, he recalled that while finishing his book, The Exorcist, he had a personal experience with a Ouija board that convinced him that he was communicating with some kind of spirit. He claimed that he had never been tempted to explore the board until that date, but once consumed, spent 10 days under its power, positive that he was communicating with the dead. He knew all about how Ouija boards worked because he'd researched it so much for the book. William originally thought it was his father communicating with them, and consulted an expert to help, validate the experience. The expert was a woman who could put herself into a self-imposed hypnotic trance, and who would operate the planchette on the Ouija board. William claims he didn't touch it at all, and asked the questions in Arabic, which the woman didn't understand a word of, and got precisely the right answers. William told Ray that after experimenting with the Ouija board, strange, inexplicable things continued to happen, believing it to be the tricks of a poltergeist. While doing the revisions of the book at a friend's house, the telephone rang, and suddenly the receiver leapt off the hook. It happened to the friend first, and then to William. So he asked a friend who did the acoustics for the Kennedy Center what the possibilities were, electrically, and his friend said it was impossible. He further consulted telephone engineers in 2 states, who also confirmed that was impossible. But both men saw it happen. This was the culmination of several incidents, but it was the main one that in no way could be explained. William remained tight-lipped about most of the other experiences, other than a typewriter that would constantly spit out lines of gibberish instead of the intended writings. Yikes! In first place, we have the Ouija board recovered from the Donovan household. Now, this is a tale from the investigative files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, my favorite paranormal investigators. 15-year-old Patty Donovan came across the Ouija board and, decided to use it to find a friend. From the first yes in response to her queries, Patty was hooked. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it specifics about her everyday life. Now, obviously, she was pretty isolated, but oh well. After a year of telling all of her secrets to the board, Patty had become emotionally dependent on the spirit, asking it one night to reveal her future. During the very long session, it laid out a scenario of Patty's life for the next 6 years, providing specific details right down to the date of birth of her first child, and the fact that she would have a total of 3 children by 1978, which is all information that would eventually prove to be true. Being as dependent as she was, on the evening of March 2nd, Patty now pleaded for the spirit to manifest. Please be true, my fake boyfriend. The next morning, her dad, Theodore Donovan, found the spark plug wires pulled out, the rubber hoses unfastened, and the fan belt cut when he attempted to start his car. Now, not much later, Patty attempted to start her car, and it was discovered later that the internal engine had been completely disassembled, somehow overnight, when nobody heard anything. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Foundation shrubs were yanked out of the ground, roots and all. On the roof, a 6-foot cast iron pipe housing, electrical wires was found bent at a 90-degree angle. On Friday, March 8th, Ted marked 1 flat on the kitchen calendar. No sooner did Patty get her car back from the shop than one of her other tires lost air. The next Saturday, her father made the same entry on the calendar, although this time it seemed the tire had been cut with a sharp implement. In the meantime, Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the Ouija board. Night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would simply slide over to goodbye. She had no idea that her lovely boyfriend had actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. Like, come on, buddy goes completely silent and your house starts being targeted by hell and you don't pick up on it? By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so extreme that Ted complained to the police, who assured him that they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work, Ted and his wife, Ellen, were sitting in the kitchen with their son, Brian, when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. Carefully moving to investigate, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall in Brian's room. Now, this hole wasn't any ordinary hole. The jagged edges were pointing inwards, with the blow coming from inside the walls. Yeah, The evidence is already a mountain for me, but we still have plenty more to pick through. Listening in the dark that night, Ted heard the sound of a board being pried loose, but after checking the entire house thoroughly, found no loose boards. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to the Warrens. Now, Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Now, they finally contacted Ed and Lorraine, who arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, finding the home in complete disarray. Lorraine originally said nothing, although at the time she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from going back outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was revealed. About time! The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism to be granted, which sadly took a month. The family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time, but that alone could fill a whole top 5, and I don't have that kind of time. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free of the demonic torment, but they were left with over $5,000 in damages to the home, which would be over $30,000 in today's money. Yay! If you need a new bestie, all you need is a cup of salt, 6 scented candles, preferably lavender, lots of chalk, a box of matches, and you can't forget an offering. Now this depends on the demons. Usually a couple of boxes of organic dark chocolate will do the trick. Start by choosing your summoning area. It could be your attic, your basement, a clearing in a deep dark forest, or an abandoned building. You can also choose a cemetery, but expect some ghosties, some ghouls, maybe a vampire. Cover your chosen summoning area in a large ring of salt and make sure there are no gaps. Using that chalk, draw a circle within the confines of the salt. Then draw an inverted pentagram in the circle. Make it big and expressive. And after all, you want to make sure you're impressing your future demon buddies. Place 5 of your candles at each point of your pentagram and place a 6th in the center. Light the candles with a match and place your offering in the center of the circle, next to that candle. Now recite the words Secula Secorulum. Be my friend, over and over, about 6 times. Say it confidently and with conviction. And if you have a particular demon in mind for summoning, picture them in your head while chanting. If you've done this correctly, then you should see purple and red light emanating from the center of the summoning circle. Now at this point, introduce yourself, get to know them. Make sure that your demons know not to cause too much chaos while they're here. Once you have confirmed they're cool, you're gonna be safe, feel free to break the salt ring and invite them to your social gathering. Once you're done, return them to the summoning circle, rebuild the salt ring, and recite the words, home sweet home, and they're gonna go back to the ring of hell. If you want a demon with more power, it's vital to work in a group. This should be made up of multiple powerful magicians channeling their collective energies into the creation of a portal. The more powerful summoners there are in a group, the greater the results. The power of the group will also determine how long the portal can remain active, since longer lasting portals allow more demonic forces to enter our plane of reality. Next up, the connection between spiritual planes of reality on our own is the most sensitive at 3 a.m. This is because the line between spirit and matter overlaps at this hour, thus making us more aware of spiritual forces, which we'd otherwise not come in contact with. Time to start the ritual. Pretty simple, just pour gasoline or another flammable concoction on the ground, and if you're creating a new portal, you're gonna have to trace the outline of the area. But if it's already clearly marked, a straight line from one side to the other will do. Afterwards, it's time to surround the portal and begin to chant. Conjuro potentiae Lucifer, petefessio apporta ad inferos, et tua demones tensire, sic orontar mundi, and you say this over and over again. As this gets close to 30 repetitions, have the leader of the group approach the portal and light the fire. On the 60th repetition, all magicians should kneel on one knee, hands stretched, palms facing the flames from a safe distance, with energy from the hands directed at flames. Repeat the chant for 30 more repetitions in this position. On the 90th repetition, either the flames are going to soar higher and you're going to see the spirits, or maybe somebody's going to jump. You're going to feel the supernatural occurrences. Now, if somebody feels summoned to enter the portal at this point, it can be done while everybody else is channeling their energy into it. Everybody should remain kneeling, minus the 1 or 2 people that go through the portal, because it's vital that the portal remains open so that you can come back. Don't wander off too much while you're there, because if anybody's starting to falter, you could get trapped. Wouldn't be fun. The Conjuring Mirror. So this was something that originally belonged to a 45-year-old New Jersey man named Oliver Birnbaum, and it was used to practice a medieval ritual known as speculum, or mirror magic. He performed a lengthy incantation ritual known as a conjuring formula, inviting the spirit world to assist him in manipulating the future. So when he first started doing this, he didn't see a lot in the mirror. Maybe the movement of a couple of blurred forms, or quick little incidents that really didn't mean anything to him. But the more he concentrated his attention into the mirror, the more control Oliver gained, and ergo the more he could see. After performing this ritual obsessively for many months, he got to the point where all he had to do was state what he wanted to see and the desired image would appear, eventually being able to tune into the future whenever he wanted. He gained the ability to project people he didn't like into the mirror, singling them out for punishment or revenge. Eventually, Oliver neglected the part of the ritual where he had to pay homage to Satan, and as a result, the evil he proposed for others began to happen to him, and the spirits he turned loose on his enemies were now infesting his home. After about a week of torment, this man was so terrified that he called a Catholic official and was like, "Please send me anybody." He got the Warrens. When they got to his home, they met a man frightened out of his wits, and well, rightfully so. Doors were opening and closing by themselves. Every minute something would crash and break, or bounce off a wall and just smash. Ed Warren was able to reverse the ritual originally enacted by Oliver and bless the house, stopping the disturbance. And he took the mirror with him too. Emerging also from the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren is that of the Black Lace Veil. So after one of his public lectures, Ed was conversing with a couple that had been in the audience. They introduced themselves as Alan and Lonnie, and they'd come because Alan had suspicions about Lonnie being under some sort of occult influence. He's like, whenever Lonnie's angry, her features are changing into something that looks like a wolf, and her voice would be different. Like, not a voice that she could make on her own just doing an impression. Well, when Lorraine walked over to join the group, Lonnie experienced an episode of instantaneous possession and lunged, like almost to attack Lorraine. After about 10 minutes, this passed, and Lonnie was lucid enough to explain that she'd been dealing with memory loss, losing hours and days of her life, which is a symptom that's kind of common in possession. Turns out she'd visited a store prominent in selling tools to help with witchcraft, bought a book on black arts, and performed a ritual for acquiring lovers. She wanted her boyfriend to fall in love with her, and this ritual involved the Black Lace Veil, on top of which she placed a crown of goat horns before renouncing God and her baptism, along with swearing allegiance to Satan, finalizing the ritual by washing down the vow with a cup of animal life force. So a month after Lonnie performed the ritual, Alan began paying her the attention she wanted, making her entitled world perfect. But everything went sideways, and Ed was like, okay, we're gonna need an exorcism. So he made contact with a priest the next morning, who was able to come and assist with the procedure. After everything was said and done, the Warrens brought the Black Lace Veil, the goat horns, the cup, and the Conjuring book home with them, because, well, they didn't want repossession to happen. And finally, yep, Ouija boards count as demonic rituals, folks. Patty Donovan was simply a lonely girl, and she thought this little board was going to find her a friend, and it found her a manipulator. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her. She told it secrets about her everyday life. She was like emotionally dependent on this weird being. Well, on the evening of March 2nd of 1974, she was pleading with her boyfriend to manifest. And the next morning, her dad found the spark plug wires pulled out of his car, the rubber hose unfastened, and the fan belt was cut. And also, Patty was like, okay, I'm gonna go try my car. Well, the internal engine was completely disassembled. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Oh, and Patty couldn't contact her invisible boyfriend anymore. Night after night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would just slide over to goodbye. She had no idea that her ethereal boyfriend was a supernatural vandal that was targeting her. By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars was so major that her dad complained to the police. By April, furniture was levitating, and by that there was a 250-pound dresser flinging itself around while flying erratically. Rocks were raining from the sky, pelting the house. Thankfully the police did see that one, but they had no answers. Finally, the family reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. They got to Maine as quickly as they could, and they were like, whoa, what's going on? After a lengthy tour of the house, they conducted an interview with the entire family, and that's when they found out about the Ouija board. So then they reached out to the Catholic Church. They were like, please, we need to, get on with an exorcism. It took about a month, and the family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free from demonic torment, but they were left with over $5,000 in damages to the home, which would be like over 30 grand in today's money.